Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I have the scoop on one of Nintendo's biggest franchises ever, Super Smash Bros. Now, I will warn you, we're both looking at this for the first time together, and this could change literally everything. That being said, let's take a look at the first footage of Super Smash Bros. 6. I wanted Gino. The Nintendo Switch 2 is on the way, and with that, we're gonna see a slew of new entries in most of Nintendo's most iconic series. We already know about Mario Kart, Kirby, and DK, and with that, we're gonna see a game that has a massive impact on the entire gaming landscape. That series, of course, being Pinball Pulse, The Ancients Beckon. Super Smash Bros. Is one of the most exciting parts of any Nintendo console, an event that celebrates the entire history of gaming with a healthy dose of Nintendo propaganda. The series hasn't missed a single console since its launch, and with it being one of the best-selling games on each console it's on, there's no question that there will be a new Smash Bros. On the Switch too. Smash Ultimate was the closest thing to a swan song we would ever get to the Smash series, including longtime fan recommendations and bringing back every previous character, which makes me wonder, how do you one-up the ultimate celebration of everything video games? Not like this. Smash Bros. Ultimate took a lot from Smash 4 engine-wise, and it's very likely that Smash 6 will do the same. It just makes sense. It cuts down on development time and gives the developers something to build on top of. There's no need to reinvent the wheel, and there's no reason to reinvent the Olimar. Or is there? It's no secret that some of the older characters are a bit outdated. Bowser's moveset is almost entirely taken from Mario 3, Ganondorf is a flat clone of Captain Falcon, and Kazuya's move list doesn't even crack 100 moves. That's why my first prediction for Smash 6 is a complete reinvention of characters' movesets. To be fair, that was my prediction for Smash 4, and Smash Ultimate, and Alvin and Chipmunks for PS2. I feel like they can't just rely on bringing everyone back again. That's why I think a ton of characters are going to see major reinventions. Now, newer additions like Inkling and Ridley are characters that don't have much room for elaboration like Ness and Mr. Game & Watch are likely going to remain the same. But characters such as Mario, Sonic, and Ryu that have had a ton of elaboration since their Smash introduction will have their movesets altered. Now, I don't think that these characters are necessarily bad in any way, but after more than 25 years, some of these characters have evolved so much of their own series, or the Smash series evolved around them, that it leads to some of the older characters to be lacking. Just compare Donkey Kong with Banjo and Kazooie. These characters' appearances are based on games made by the same company around the same time, but where DK is a mostly generic bruiser big guy, Banjo is an almost one-to-one translation of their movesets in-game. Now, I'm not asking for Mario to whip out the Wonder Flower, use the barrel cannon, and sprout bunny ears, but it does feel odd that his most recent addition to his moveset was the Flood Pack from Mario Sunshine, an item he hasn't used since that game. I always see people suggesting crazy gameplay changes, completely missing the point that Smash has a winning formula, and in spite of dozens of competitors showing up, Smash still stands on top because of its fantastic gameplay. Art style-wise, I don't see there being a huge evolution from Ultimate, aside from a different lighting engine. The previous game focused a lot on a vivid painted look in combination with extremely vibrant colors, so my prediction is going a bit further with the art style, being closer to something like Arcane or the Gwen Stacy sections of Spider-Verse. The entirety of the future games in these series kind of rides on the presentation. Smash Ultimate was clearly built on the back of Smash 4, but caught the eyes of so many people because of its great presentation and the game not rotting in a morgue anymore. Smash 6 won't only be going up against the biggest game in the series, but that game will also be playable on the next system, meaning that it will really need a reason to reel people in. Gameplay and modes are one of the most important parts of the series. People remember Brawl for two reasons: Denim and Subspace Emissary. It's important to have variety in the side modes available, so my predictions are as follows. Classic mode will be similar to Classic mode in Ultimate, but will take cues from games like PlayStation All-Stars, Street Fighter 6, and literally every other Classic mode in any fighting game by actually contextualizing the fights happening. Other side modes will include Home Run Contest, Mob Smash, Break the Targets, and Amiibo. This of course means that every new fighter in the game will get an amiibo, which just makes sense. It's the series that kicked off amiibo. They made sure that everyone got one in the previous game, and it might be the only series that gets non-amiibo freaks interested. Spirits also seem to be a bust in Ultimate, but I don't see them being completely destroyed. Rather, they will mix it with their prototype for Brawl, stickers. Stickers in Brawl were such an obscure mechanic that most people just assumed them to be a secondary collectible to the trophies. Applying the stickers actually would slightly change your stats in the story mode, something that was taken to its extreme in Ultimate. While spirits were a lousy replacement for the trophies in previous games, it did allow for limited time events that Nintendo loved. It let some series that wouldn't receive proper character representation get a little bit of skin in the game. Trophies also take a more development time than importing a PNG of some key art, and for something that only 10% of the players actually care about, I don't see the implementation of trophies, no matter how many times I call Nintendo's office. I predict that we'll see a sort of middle ground in Smash 6, something that has more style and charm while still being relatively easier to implement. This would also allow for a slightly more impressive vault, but at the end of the day, this is relatively unimportant to everything else. Let's take a look at something that is important though. That is my address. Subspace Emissary is such a charming adventure with heights that Smash has yet to hit again. While Spirit Mode from Ultimate was a fun distraction, its over-reliance on standard battles and lack of cutscenes led to it being underwhelming. I liked Smash for Wii U's Adventure Mode. I really want them to do a story mode similar to Subspace Emissary, but I doubt we'll ever see something like that again. With the way that the series handles DLC characters and Sakurai's anger at YouTube re-uploads of cutscenes, I doubt we'll ever see something on that level again. So here's what I propose. The Scrapbook. Tying into Smash 64's opening cutscene and Spirit Mode, you explore the map finding both characters and stickers. However, there's much more than basic versus matches. You explore a world that's similar to Yoshi's Crafted World and Mario Wonder, but themed around the characters' worlds. The main areas will consist of small mini-games and versus matches, and between them there will be standard brawl-style adventure stages and boss battles. This will justify the crossover element and story elements that Subspace had while keeping with the form that Spirit Mode introduced. I really hope for more cutscenes like in Subspace, but given Sakurai's opinions on cutscenes in-game, I figure that isn't possible, so to compensate, I do hope for finger puppets. Mr. Game & Watch, I want a divorce! And we can't have Smash without... The returning characters are just as important as the new ones, to the point that was half the advertising for Smash Ultimate. I don't want to discuss every single character in depth, rather I think it'd be more interesting if I discuss the ones that I think are gonna get cut, and the strange ones that I think are gonna stay. However, I will still list all the characters that are safe from the chopping block, so... you know what that means. It's time for the Big Deuce Lightning Round! Mario, Luigi, Peach and Daisy, Bowser, Rosalina and Luma, Yoshi, Wario, Piranha Plant, Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong, King K. Rool, Samus and Dark Samus, Ridley, Kirby, Meta Knight, King Dedede, Pikachu and Pichu, Jigglypuff, Pokemon Trainer, Lucario, Greninja, Fox, Falco, Wolf Nest, Link, Zelda, Ganon, Toon Link, Captain Falcon, Duck Hunt, Ice Climbers, Rob, Mr. Game & Watch, all the Fire Emblem characters aside from Corn and Byleth, Pit, Dark Pit, Palutena, Sonic, Olimar, Isabelle, Mega Man, Pac-Man, Shulk, Ryu, and Ken, Cloud, Bayonetta, Inkling, Joker, Hero, Terry, Banjo, Min, Steve, Kazuyo, and of course, the Mii Fighters. Don't worry, I already locked all my doors and windows. Dr. Mario was first on the chopping block, and I think it's pretty obvious why. The only thing setting him apart from your basic bitch standard Mario is a funny stomp, and while the stomp is funny, I feel like there's no reason this can't be a skin. As for Bowser Jr., I feel like out of all the Mario characters, he's the most likely to be cut. Yes, even above Piranha Plant. You will rule us all one day. I'm still a little iffy on K. Rool's inclusion, but with the new game coming out and a rumored DK movie in the works, it's clear that Nintendo's giving a lot of love to the DK series, and I could see K. Rool becoming way more relevant on the Switch too. Dark Samus is a character I could see morphing into an entirely new character given the theorized role it'll be playing in Metroid Prime 4. As popular as Pokemon is, not every attempted mascot really makes it big, and the character's inclusions become strange in Smash. My theorized cuts for Smash 6 are Incineroar and Mewtwo. Mewtwo might seem like a crazy pick, but I feel like the character's popularity has severely dwindled in the public eye despite everything the Pokemon Company does to make it super interesting. Plus, he's already been cut before. And while Incineroar has his fans, out of all the Pokemon in the game, he probably has the smallest appeal out of all of them. I wanted to say that Greninja was gonna be cut, but he's still massively popular in Japan. Incineroar is nowhere near an unpopular Pokemon, but if it's coming down to him and Lucario, he's getting the boot. The Star Fox characters are always on the edge of relevancy for Nintendo, but I can never see them being cut from Smash, considering how big Fox and Falco are in the Smash community. Wolf is on the edge of being cut, but I believe Ultimate did boost his popularity, so for now, he'll stay. Lucas is dead. Earthbound is a cult classic, and Ness has been here from the beginning, but ever since Smash Brawl, kids have been scratching their heads on who the hell this other kid even is, because this makes total sense. Lucas doesn't have the same standing power that Ness has, and until Nintendo localizes Mother 3, it's gonna stay that way. Sheik is another character on the chopping block to me, because as time goes on, their inclusion makes less and less sense. While relevant to the 90s and even the early 2000s, Sheik is a character that an average child won't really understand as a character, as opposed to Bayonetta, which instantly clicks as a multiverse-traveling witch with amnesia. I could see Sheik's moveset being given to one of the Breath of the Wild characters, but aside from that, I don't see a future for this character. As for Young Link, I don't see a point in the character. I'm sorry, you just hate to hurt the ones you love the most. While it does preserve the classic Link moves from previous games, he still fits pretty much the same position as Toon Link with a less unique design. Wii Fit Trainer is dead. Nintendo's moved on from the Wii, even if we haven't. Not only is Wii Fit Trainer attached to a long-dead franchise and console, but what the hell kind of name is Wii Fit Trainer? Is she training the Wii? Worst case, they can take her out back and shoot her. Best case scenario, Ring Fit Trainer. I can also see Little Mac being cut. Not because he's a less than optimal character, but because the series is less than popular and hasn't had a new entry for over 15 years. While Fire Emblem has its fans and is extremely popular in Japan, the roster of Smash Bros. Has an excessive amount of characters from the series. There, are you happy? I actually enjoy playing as these characters, but I could see some cuts. While some might point to Roy as prime cut material, I would say that it's more likely to see Byleth and Corrin leave. While these characters aren't bad by any means, from the outside looking in, these are the least popular characters in Smash as far as I can tell. Villager was put into Smash before Isabelle, and if Nintendo knew how popular Isabelle was gonna be, I doubt that Villager would ever even be introduced. The characters are very similar to each other, and one of these characters is definitely more popular than the other. Xenoblade is in a weird position where I feel like it's worthy of multiple spots, but in the grand scheme of Smash Bros., Pyra and Mythra feel so out of place. I don't think I've seen a single Xenoblade fan play as the duo, instead being the main of the greasy-haired kid with oddly sticky hands. The final cuts I see happening are also the least surprising, being Sephiroth and Sora, both being owned by companies that are infamous from their difficulties in licensing. If I had to pick between the two, I would say that Sephiroth has the edge, only because of Nintendo being able to partner up with Square as of late. So that's who I think is coming back and who's getting the boot, but let's be honest, that's not what us creeps care about. The only thing we care about is... This is a list of characters I think are gonna make it in, or I just want in. For convenience, I will list this based on most likely to least likely, starting with... Astrobot is the clearest shoo-in for an inclusion in Smash 6. Not only is it the only game on PlayStation's final console, but his game made waves across the world of gaming for just being that good. He's a character with hype behind him, a clear moveset, and represents PlayStation better than any other character they could add. It's honestly more surprising that the Monster Hunter wasn't ever added to Smash Ultimate. Between the series' popularity and Rathalos even being a boss in Ultimate, it was just baffling seeing the character show up in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite rather than Smash. I would assume that this was some form of exclusivity on the character, which is why they didn't make their way into Smash Ultimate. Regardless, the Monster Hunter is an obvious pick for Smash 6. Pikmin had a massive comeback on the Switch. Pikmin 4 breathed new life into the series while also introducing a new poster child for the series in the form of Ochi. Smash is also in desperate need of villains, so if they include Louie, they would finally have the first Smash character to know about the existence of Duracell. I could see them including one, the other, or even both, and in any scenario I would be ecstatic. Paper Mario has been my pick for over 3 generations of Smash. I wanted him in 4, I wanted him in Ultimate, and I want him in Smash 6. The current iteration of Mario and Smash has zero RPG influence, and the addition of Paper Mario could serve not only as that, but would be visually distinct from every other character. I would say that he's the most likely inclusion in the Mario series, but I feel like there's one character that could take his place. Waluigi has been done so dirty by Smash. He's one of the most requested characters of all time, so much so that when Sakurai had a purple and yellow chair in the background of one of the directs, people thought the bastard was being teased. It just makes so much sense to have a character to represent the Mario spin-offs from a character that existed solely within them, and one with so much character. When people clamor for a rhythm game rep in Smash, they usually bring up a character from Rhythm Heaven, but I think there's one character that has that series beat. That, of course, being Parappa the Rapper. Sure, there hasn't been a new game in years, but out of all the rhythm game mascots, he just has the most character out of any of them. His first appearance had him fighting in a dojo, he's been in a boot camp, and of course he was in the first bad Smash clone, so he's ripe for the picking. Even years later, he has a thriving fan base and is still extremely iconic in the world of gaming. There's no way that Shadow doesn't make it in. The Sonic series is begging for another rep in Smash, and with all the recent love he's been getting, Shadow the Hedgehog is the most blatantly obvious pick for the new game. With Shadow Generations and the Sonic 3 movie showing people how genuinely cool he is, I feel like he's one of the most obvious picks for Smash 6. Oh, also, we're getting a new Pokemon and a new Fire Emblem. I'm mad. Remember when they showed off the Shovel Knight Assist trophy like it was a big deal? Sure, it's cool that an indie game was represented in any right, but after the Sans and Cuphead amiibo costumes, it lost a bit of luster. Not to mention that Shovel Knight is damn near everywhere. It would be cool to see his Smash debut play similar to his moveset in Rivals of Aether, but given the release of Rivals 2, I would honestly expect to see him pop up there instead. On top of that, I feel like there's an indie series that has a higher chance to get in than anyone. Toby Fox and Nintendo are extremely buddy-buddy with each other. Hell, Sans' technical inclusion in Ultimate is enough to show that they're not necessarily against the idea. While Sans is the obvious fan request, I would honestly say that Chris from Deltarune has a stronger chance. A character with less abstract moves to pull from and is straight up the main character makes me think that they have the highest chance to get in compared to any other indie character. I expect to see at least one new fighting game rep, but it's up in the air who it could be. I'd put my money on Soul Bad Guy from Guilty Gear just given how much traction the series has gotten, but it could be literally anybody. Luke from Street Fighter, Jin Kazama, Terry Bogard again, the list really is endless. During the reveal of the DLC characters in Ultimate, there was a theory that this shard of ice on the battlefield stage encased Rayman, and when he would be revealed as a DLC character, he would burst out of the ice. The people who believed this were sniffing straight human. I believed it. Fan theories aside, I do hope to see him show up in Smash in some form. Not only because I like him, but because you hate to see somebody trapped in Brawlhalla Purgatory. This is also my place to say I want Crash Bandicoot, but given that he can't get his own games out, I'm not expecting any guest appearances. Now those are my predictions / wish list for Super Smash Bros. 6. Whether I'm right or wrong, I'm still really excited for this game that's yet to be announced or even rumored. It's only a matter of time before I see people rallying for Freddy Fazbear and for Geno fans to feel shame once again. That could be another leak! Hello? Understood. Well, it turns out I was right. We are getting a fighting game rep, and probably the most famous of them all. Everybody give it up, straight from Fight of Gods, Jesus Christ! I still prefer Geno.